to meet you all here at the festival Happy and Healthy with Homeopathy. I'm grateful that we are all here and would like to tell you that these events, this series of events we started in 2019 in Your Era of Love with Homeopathy are source of joy and love for me. And we are all excited, all speakers are excited. And what connects all of us is our love to homeopathy. We all adore it. It's our life. It's our lover. We cannot treat everyone at every time. But when the right time comes from each of our patients, the more we go deeper into this wonderful ocean homeopathy, the more we are able to attract patients who are ready to be healed from the head to toes. And we will listen today very interesting lectures from very enthusiastic homeopaths. And first of them is Dr. Mita Nilani. And now she will present the lecture, very interesting lecture, Levels of Health to You. And now I start record you. Wait.
Right. So should I start?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you everyone. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Dr. Viva, for having us and creating this platform. It's always a fun being here and sharing what we are learning in different corners of the world, right? So, though divided there by boundaries, but we still share a common passion, that is homeopathy. As Dr. Genoveva, she said that we all are passionate homeopaths, right? So, this is what brings us here. And today, my topic will be levels of homeopathy. And I'm Dr. Meeta Nilani from India. I practice in heart of India, which is Chhattisgarh. This is my 30th year of practice, 32 years almost. I'm practicing since 3 decades. So, as I'm practicing, I'm being exposed to newer methods of teaching, newer methods of learning. So, it's a process. I have an institute over here, which is a research institute of classical homeopathy. I've started teaching since 2004 in Raipur. Also, I'm connected to Academy of Homeopathy, which is the other song Academy in Mumbai. That is our abode. We learn homeopathy from there, from our mentors. And I would just love to share what I'm learning from there and how it has deepened my journey of homeopathy, right? So, this is my topic today, the levels of homeopathy. So, this is a most wonderful thing which recently we have studied in last few years. This was the concept introduced by Dr. Shankaran, Dr. Rajan Shankaran, our mentor, and so this is a very intriguing facet for me, which has taken me to different realms of homeopathy and it has taken me to a portal of healing. This is what I say. This is a part of sensation method. This was introduced by Dr. Shankaran uh, in his method, which is the sensation method. So these are levels of healing and these has opened a portal of healing and different. I have integrated many different healing techniques in homeopathy, uh, and this is what I like to share today. So this is my mantra. I transform lives through the power of my surrender. This is given to me by my mentor, is Narmada Akshat. So this is what takes us ahead this is what takes us ahead, and we keep on learning so many things. We are in a zone of unknown. We are in a place where we practically, many a times, we don't know what we are dealing with. So this is the place where we need that absolute surrender. We need to be in that phase of not knowing. And so this is what takes me ahead. I am in an absolute zone of surrender where I am ready to accept that I know nothing, and this is what creates a possibility of healing in different dimensions. So now, what are these levels of healing? So as we know, in homeopathy, disease is an individual experience. How we experience our disease individually is what we try to find out in homeopathy. We may all, many of our patients come with migraine, but they can have an individual experience of migraine, and that is what is to be traced in homeopathy, because we are working on the principle of individualization. So more we individualize our patient individually, specifically, and the more we are nearer to the simillimum. So this is what we try to trace in our homeopathic journey of case witnessing. So initially what we used to call as case taking, now we have replaced that word, at least me, I have replaced that word as case witnessing. So what we do is we just witness. We just, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So nowadays we call that process as case witnessing, because what I have realized, as we go deep into the case taking, you have to come to a point which is at a zero point, which is a phase where even the physician and the patient, they are in a place of non judgment, and they create a space which is safe so that the energy transaction can be done. So it's beyond collecting, mere collecting of symptoms. It is beyond the physical or mathematical collection of symptoms. We just exchange our energies during the process. So this is where you have to be in that absolute calm space, and that is where the energy transaction happens. It's a give and take of energy. So we witness the case, we witness what is happening in the chamber, in the room. So we have to, I have learned to create that space. So this is how we can travel into these levels of healing. Right. So, what is the motto of our case taking or case witnessing is to observe the inner story. The person comes to us with a series of symptoms, it's a collection of symptoms, but beyond the symptoms, we have to see what the person is trying to say. Who is this person who's talking? What is his inner conflict? What is his inner conflict? What is his inner story? How he perceives the world? How safe he feels the world? How much trust he has for the world? So this is how we see his placement in the world. So this unfolds a different, you can say, a totality. So initially the totality was the collection of symptoms, then we used to have physical generals, then we had mental generals, then we had dreams. So now we see this whole, and also we see the energy behind all this, and this is what we call that some energy, it resonates, the person's energy, or it resonates with something in nature, which can be a plant, mineral, or animal, and that is how we have different kingdoms, and that leads us to the simillimum. So how the world is perceived, like it can be just a symptom over here. Like I had a patient who had very small little eruptions on his hand. So they were so menial, so trivial, that for me, when I see that he was so anxious about, doctor, see this, doctor, see this eruption, doctor, what, this is troubling me so much. And frankly speaking, if I would have been a patient with such trivial eruptions, I would never have gone to a doctor also, taking your precious time. It is only when they have that, that they are in that totally dis-ease, that their ease is affected, that is what brings them here. So I had to understand in this case ki what is it that brings him here. These eruptions were not enough, they were very menial. But what he says, when he went into deeper expression of his disease, he went that people will not like me because of these, people will have disgust because of these, they will reject me. So it was these small little eruptions, and he had, how big was his trauma behind this, that people will not like to talk to me, I'll be isolated. So when we went deep into that patient, when I took him to through the process of levels, what I saw was, like, what we can see here is ki these at the superficial level, these are just eruptions, but how he is experiencing it was very magnanimous, and then when I asked him to close the eyes and experience what is there, what he said was very peculiar. And it was, when I was doing this in the beginning, he said he could visualize these eruptions as very big, and he says they are stinking, something is flowing out of it, there is pus, there is discharge, and it is stinking. And I nobody is coming near my bed, I'm sitting on my bed. He was just closing his eyes and he was talking about this. And this is where I realized that he has gone into an experience which is not from this timeline. It is not related to these small trivial eruptions. So in his consciousness, there were big ulcers, they were slowing, there was pus coming out, and it was so stinking so much, and nobody wanted to talk to him because, and he was isolated. So in his experience of these eruptions, there was a leprous state. Hmm? That nobody is wanting to talk to me, and because of him, he said, now nobody wants to come to my home also, and in my small village, whole of my family is being isolated. So this was there in his consciousness when he just gave these eruptions all his attention, and he was with it. So what I could see, that he is not in this realm, he is not into this timeline. So when I persisted with him, I got the remedy also, and also I could see the distorted vision of what he was having right now. So this is what took me further, and I worked with these levels. So this is the inner story. The outer story, the eruptions, they were very small, but he had an inner story which was triggered by these eruptions, and these eruptions were not to be treated. The main treatment what we have to do is we have to treat his inner story. We have to help him release that story, right? So this is what I learned as I furthered, and this is the picture given by Dr. Shankaran in his book Sensation. This is what helps me to understand where I am in the case, and also this is something which changed my perspective of practice. So what we see here is, at the level 1, there is only the name of the pathology, like small eruptions in that case. The pathology, there was, what it is here, it's just the name, these eruptions. And then there is a level 2 which are facts. So what are the facts? These are the facts, like it's better by itching, it's better by scratching, it is not better by cold water, it is better by warmth water. So when a person gives me many facts, means which we also called as modalities, about, like, this eruption increases this time, it is jagged, it is deep, it has ulcers, it has red borders, it has ragged borders. So when I get this maximum, and the person is not talking beyond this, the person is talking only about these facts, and that means that the person is experiencing everything at the level 2, which is the level of fact. So when we talk about this here, if I know my patient is at the level of facts, it's at level 2, the potency which I prescribe is 30. So this helps me to understand which potency is to be given and how the prognosis will be there of the case. So now as we go further, we see this level 3, which is feeling. So if the person is coming to me and he's talking more about these eruptions, they make me so irritable. I just want to slap everybody that time. I don't understand, doctor. It makes me so irritable. So what we see is there is a name, the eruptions, then there is a emotion attached to that. So what we see here is the person is more into his feeling. This small symptom, it has triggered his emotions, and he has left the eruption behind, and he's just talking about the irritability. So now here I know that I have to understand what is this irritability, what makes him irritable, and I have to work on his irritability. So recently I got a case in which he had this, the person has urticaria since 6 months, and he has tried everything. He has even tried steroids, although he's a diabetic too. But so then he understood that he has to see a homeopath because he can't keep taking on these steroids and anti-allergics. So how he came to me, when he came to me, he had these eruptions. He says, people tell me who has clawed you, kisne, like who has scratched you with your nails. So that was the appearance. And when I went deeper, it was all about his irritability. He says, this makes me more irritable, throughout the day I express that irritability on my staff or everybody around. I am an irritable person, but at night when I am on my bed, practically he did not have anybody to vent out this irritability, and that is the time when you used to experience this irritability, this eruptions. So what I knew in this case was I have to leave this eruptions behind, I have to leave the facts behind, and I have to stay with this irritability. So whole case was about that irritability, right? So now there, here we know that the potency which can be given is 200. So this understanding of potencies and understanding of the levels has helped me so much that I exactly know where I am in the case. And even in big pathological cases, I can start with higher potencies. Normally what we did was, in pathological cases we used to start low, but that loses time, and also that is not, like, we are not hitting the bull's eye. But with this method, I know that in this case I have to give 200 potency. So now the next level which comes up is level 4, which is the delusion level. In this case, it was, like as if somebody has scratched, hmm? Somebody, so he had this gesture. So now what we get is, we get a delusion here. So if a person is just talking about the delusion, like in the previous case I told you all, that as if he was isolated, as if he was a leper, the people they didn't treat him well, they did not want him to come home, he was not invited, his family also was boycotted. So this is the delusion attached to that particular symptom. So here what we see now, the things have gone from local to general. It is more in the PNI. It is not only in the at the level of mind, body. It's not only at the physical or emotional level. This has gone beyond, because here we are getting a delusion. So what we see here is, at this level, at the level of 1m, which is a potency. Here we see that the whole of the psycho, neuro, endocrino, immunological axis has been affected. And when I get cases of this level, most of the times the thermals are also not predictable. We then cannot base on we can't base our prescriptions at the level of physical thermal generals, right? This is a place we have to go deeper. We understand, because there is a turmoil at the PNEI axis, we don't get the proper this thermal modalities, right? So here what we get is, we get a clear cut delusion, we get an inner story which is being projected, which also seems that this is not coming from this timeline, it is coming from something yonder. It is not in this, this situation now has just triggered something which was already there in the consciousness. So here we see dreams, here we see cravings, and here we see the hormones full, they are totally blown off. So now this is the level 5, and as we go further, if the person experiences a delusion and he gives you a strong this gestures during the process, here we see that, and these gestures come again and again. This is a place where we see the pattern. So this is a level of sensation. Here we see how he experiences his delusion at the level of nerves. So this is the sensation level. So what we see is gradually we are moving deep from the physical to emotional to a delusion level, and then a level of sensation. So here what happens is, as we can see in this figure, is that we can see the man who is suffering from the disease, he goes behind, and the energy which is driving him, it comes forward. So here we see a clear picture of the simillimum or the energy. We can see who is talking behind this person. So this makes this whole process very interesting, and it helps us to go beyond the superficial symptoms, the emotions, and it gives us a clear cut inner story. It gives a clear cut pattern. So now with homeopathy, what we are doing is we are trying to release these inner patterns. So initially what we thought was, like, homeopathy, we just used to give it in symptoms, but then we added physical generals, then mental generals, but now we understand that we are releasing these patterns. So these patterns can also come from previous generations. Recently I worked with a case in which I saw a similar pattern in the grandfather, then the father, and now the son. So now even the family knows that if the grandfather is not healed, the father will also have the same problem, and the grandson is also having the same problems, and the grandson and father will land up into the same uh, problems. Like the grandfather, he's having vertigo and he's a hypochondriac person. So, and everything he eats, he just measures everything while eating. Like, I have to drink, and also he is so panicky, and he's so finicky and fastidious about. He will, he has an alarm clock for every hour, and he has to take this much of water. Like, if the water taken is this much, he feels it is because of this water I'm getting sick. So if, like, the clock strikes 2 minutes ahead of 12 o'clock, he's panicky, are I didn't take water. And if he takes water at 12 o'clock, 12:20, he will start asking his wife, please tell me if it's 1 o'clock, I have to drink water. Every 5 minutes he'll ask her. So whole of his life since 7 8 years is like that. It's my time for medicine, then how much water should I take with my medicine? Should I take this much water? Oh, today I took this much water, so that's why I'm having this problem. So you can understand how that family is operating in his state. But now what they are seeing is ki, although they are very they are sometimes cooperative with this father, sometimes they literally tell him to just keep quiet, we have to go for work. So it's a very mixed kind of atmosphere. But what they are seeing is the son is now started, he is also getting these problems. If I eat from that shop, I get this problem. If I eat from that shop, I get problem. I have to have this cottage cheese from that place, that works better for me. And again, the grandson also is experiencing the same thing. So what we are seeing is there is a pattern which is going running in 3 generations. And when the mother comes to me, she understands how I'm working. She knows that her son and her husband also walking on the same path. So she is very scared, and she wants them to get themselves treated right now, here itself, right? So when we work understanding the levels, although how the pattern is experienced is different because of the ages, but we know there is a common thread. So here what we are doing is we are working on the generational patterns also. So now this is level 5, which is a sensation level. Then is the level 6, where we can clearly see the energy. Like we can see it in our patients of tarantula, our young patients. Normally we can see this unadulterated form in our children. As we get older, we can we learn to compensate these pure forms. So this is the level of 50M, where we can see the energy directly. We can uh, work with the energies, and we can clearly see the patterns before the person talks something. We can see there. So now this is level 6, and then there is a level 7, which is the CM potency, and which is the blankness, which is the plain screen. So this Dr. Shankaran calls this level as the seventh. The There is no name for this. It's just the seventh. This is the place where healing happens. Hmm? So this is the plain screen where all the symptoms and all the patterns are projected. So once we have this in background, we can open many portals of healing. This has helped me to take my practice to a deeper level. So this is how we see our symptoms. Outside we have physical, then we have emotional, then we have mental, and then there is something which we call as central disturbance. So this is a central stick on which everything gets intertwined. Hmm? So once we are clear, we can see how the patient is, from the where the patient is coming. We can segregate, and we can clearly take a dive into the central disturbance. And as we all know that the ripples of every, even in water, the ripples are clearest in the center. Outside you may have these faint expressions of the vital force, but as we go deeper, the we get a clear picture. The more deep we are, we get a clear picture. Like if you take a symptom from here outside, we get a rubric which have many remedies, right? But as we go towards the center, we can pick up a rubric which has minimum remedies, and then we are clear of a prescription. So many a times what we see, that we give a remedy and it helps partially. This happens with all of us, like 3 months, 6 months the patient is better, and again he comes after some times. That is because we are able to access only these outer layers. So with this method, understanding these levels, we can go deeper and we can work with the central disturbance. So I can give this, I just want to show how, what the magnitude which we can work in homeopathy. And it gives, this lecture will give you many seeds to ponder, because every time we work with a patient, the patient gives us something which opens our consciousness, right? We get exposed to the beauty and wonder of homeopathy, right? So this was one such case. This was a case of a girl who was 32 years old, and she had this vaginismus, and she had this fear of coition, although she was in a love marriage. But she did not allow her husband to touch her for 2 years, and finally that her marriage ended into divorce. So now this girl, she understood after the divorce that this was the reason for divorce, and she was in the whole village, she was pointed out, her husband pointed out that you had this problem which made me have an extramarital affair, and now you're blaming me. So it was so embarrassing for her, and she felt humiliated, but ultimately she understood that she has to work on this, from where this fear is coming. Although she was in a love marriage, she had chosen the partner, she was happy with the partner, but she didn't allow her to touch him. So this is the condition in which there's a muscle spasm. It can make it painful and difficult. So this is what it is. Now what we see is, when I went through the case, I took her into those stages in which we take a case. And what I do is, once we reach at level 4, I just ask them to just close their eyes and be. So what happened in this case was, now what we see here is level 1. Level 1, it's vaginismus. Level 2, there was fact, which is pain during coition. Level 3, there is an emotion of fear of getting intimate. Although she used to serve her husband in all other ways, but this was the place where she was lacking. And that's why initially, when she knew that he's having an extramarital, she couldn't voice it out. She couldn't stop him. And then At level 4, when I asked her to be with this fear and let's see from where this fear is coming, she was just with this fear of getting intimate, and then we took her to that silent space where she could experience what is coming, what is behind this fear. So there she could see these images. Now this is what we called as delusion, because it is not in this timeline, it is not in the now, it is not in the present moment, it is as if, right? So this as if is there in the consciousness. We don't know what timeline it is coming, but this was her inner experience or inner stories. So just when she closed her eyes, she just had that fear. I could see that fear, and then she just started verbalizing her fear, and then she said, I am 16-year-old. She described to me what she was wearing. She was wearing a school uniform. She said, I can see a person who is after me, and he had written it on the wall that I am going to rape you and I'm not going to leave you. She said, I could see his eyes. He was the guard, the security guard of the school, and he used to look at her with different intentions which were not good, but she could see that he is not getting some opportunity where she was alone, so she said he had written in a corner of a school in a wall that I'm not going to leave you. And she says, I can experience that abuse in whole of my body, in whole of my consciousness, and that is what gives me a feeling that sex is shit. She says, I don't like the idea of getting intimate with my husband. She says, only in my consciousness I just want that pure love which is platonic. So here she could really understand that where she was uh, not being uh, able to be compatible with her partner, right? So she could she could even tell me how the person looked. He was fat, he was around 35, and she said then that, doctor, I can't see short dark men who are around 35 to 40. She says, I am never ever, I am comfortable in the presence of this kind of a personality. She says, if somebody of my uncle, he looks like that, I am just scared and I didn't know why. So now what we see here in her experience, in her consciousness, she has this image of a person who had intimidated her. So, and at the level 5, at that moment she says, ma'am, I can feel that as if there are ulcers in my vagina, and this is the exact pain which she experienced during getting intimate with her partner. So now, when she was taken for gynecological examination, it was clean. The pelvic examination was okay. Doctor said there's nothing inside. But every time this she used to try to get intimate, she used to have this feeling as if there are some painful, traumatic ulcers in the vagina, right? So now what we can see is, we can see how that image or that experience within her, which is not from this timeline, is making her experience all this. So when we healed this, in this process, during this process, what happened is, I could understand the fear which I was not able to understand when I took the case initially. So this understanding these levels helps us to explore the case at deeper levels, and here we get clear cut rubrics. Hmm? Here we get the remedy, here we get the simillimum, which is very, very nearer to the central disturbance. So, when I took her deeper in that state, so what she experienced was, when I told her to release this, it is not in the present, just allow this, allow to yourself to process this. What she saw was, at the end of the session, she used to dance like this, you know, she used to do this gesture. So this is how at that point we could see her energy. So now what she says is that this energy, it's now coming up and it's merging and it's becoming one. So here when she experienced this oneness, she said that this is Shiva and Shakti meeting at a point, and now sex is sacred. So, how in this process of how we understood by understanding the levels, like what is to be healed in this case, what was her inner belief system and from where it was coming. So her inner belief system was that sex is shit, and when we tried to heal it, when we tried to heal the consciousness or the delusion at the level 4, how we could see this energy coming up, and then it's merging at a point, and there she feels that this sex is sacred. This is this in kind of intimacy she has always been looking for. Mm. She says, I cannot just talk to anybody. I just, my relationship has to be that sacred. And that's why she was so giving. Her husband, he didn't earn much. He was in his beginning of a career. And this was a girl who was very rich and she was the only child. So this girl, every time she took care of every need of her husband. She says, for me, sacrificing and giving and being so giving is what is the ultimate, like she says, I can't have I can't talk superficially. I have to experience this oneness. So what this girl she was looking was for this sacredness, but she wasn't able to process that in her sexual sphere, right? So this is how we can work with the cases, and this helps us to go deep in the case. Sometimes we just get stuck in the superficial levels and we are not able to go, and we fail to find the simillimum. So now what was the level of experience? There are no ulcers in the vagina on examination, but she experienced the pain. So now when I look back and I think about this, what was to be healed in this case? What timeline this is coming? How to heal? So what is being healed in this case? So what we see is we are healing these patterns. So what as a question is more fruitful than why? Although when we went deeper we understood why, but we had to see the exact pattern. What? So, what happens is when we take psychotherapy, when we try to heal through counseling, what happens is we are talking most of the time intellectually. But here, when we take them deeper, we take them to a level which is very experiential. Here, she experienced this sacredness. Here, that moment itself, she felt that something within her has healed. Although she required these sessions one in 6 months, because this issue kept coming back. So I used to give her a dose also. For it required 3 sessions at least. So she used to come like, and she used to dance, and she used to experience this oneness, and there she understood this real meaning of sex, that it is sacred. It is the integration of yin and yang within you. It is not an experience which is outside. Again, it can be experienced within. It is the marriage of that yin and yang energies within you. So, this is what healed in this case, and what kind of healings we had, like what was the level of healing. So this is physical healing, emotional healing, mental healing, and healing at the level of energy. And also there was a healing at the level of spiritual. The spiritual healing also happened. She used to look down upon sex because she had that trauma, but she could understand that even it is a way to connect to someone in a spiritual manner. So this is how homeopathy helps you to that level, hmm, where there was no pain, there was no experience of ulcers. So there was a healing at the level of physical. She was emotionally more healthy, she was emotionally more connected, she was ready for marriage. Now she was looking for, otherwise she said she'll never ever marry because all men are like that. So there was a level healing at the level of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual and energy level. So this is what intrigues us as homeopaths, to extend and make people understand that if you're coming for migraine, it is not only your headache, there is something behind your headache and something deeper which is asking to be healed. Hmm? So ultimately, what heals is through homeopathy or our small little magic pills is the consciousness. So consciousness heals with homeopathy if you understand all these levels, and if you understand broadly or deeply, like how it's such a beautiful experience when you see people being healed to this level. So this is because of our diluted remedies. We dilute our remedies and take to the dynamic level, and the healing spiral, how healing deepens, like the healing actually it is in the spirals. I told you all, it she came to me for at least thrice for the session. We come to the same spot after some time, but it is less intense. So, the way healing actually works means the symptoms repeat in smaller and smaller repetitions. Seen this way, healing is ever deepening spiral. So, healing is also in levels, right? So, the path isn't a straight line, it's a spiral. You continually come back to things you thought you understood and see deeper truths. So, this was my small message which I want to share, that we can work to this level and we can see these deeper truths in our patients and also heal ourselves. So, thank you so much. I'm grateful to my mentors, Dr. Shankaran, Dr. Gandhi, my clients, and you all for this patient listening. So, thank you all and happy healing.
Thank you very much, Mita, for your very interesting, deep, and detailed lecture. We forgot to meditate. The idea was in the beginning to meditate and to direct our love towards Ukraine. A month ago, when a resort in Varna, I met a Russian girl, and she was a mother with a child. I just asked her, "How are you? What's going on? Are you from Ukraine?" "No, I'm from Russia. What is the situation in Ukraine?" And she shared that many things, but the main thing that affected me most was that the Russian soldiers rape Ukraine women